Yeah. Hello, this is Elizabeth Clare Brewington with Discover Brightside, the video podcast and network. And I'm so pleased to have in my studio two amazing people, Sandeep and Judnefera. I've had the pleasure of meeting them, and I've also had the pleasure of having Sandeep on our show twice for Empower America and Empower Global. And I am so excited now we're doing Empower Life. And next month, we're doing Empower Prosperity. So, Sandeep, I am so honored and privileged to see you, and I've enjoyed all your videos on YouTube and Judnefera's videos as well. And I will definitely bring Judnefera in the conversation as well. So, Sandeep is the founder of RENEWALism um, Inner Power Coach and author, and he's an author of two books, Renewal and The Emptiness of Success. So Sandeep, tell me a little bit about yourself and this journey as an author, as a coach, as a teacher, and a mentor. So tell me, this seems a fascinating journey. So share your story.
Well, thank you so much. I found it fascinating myself, and what fascinated me was the way it just evolved on its own. For example, this book Renewal. Well, you say I'm the writer, but I'm not. I'm merely the scribe. It was channeled to me. So, fascinating things that sort of happened in my life, and true story. But I was just sitting one day in Mexico with nothing much to do, and suddenly this word renewal popped into my head, and I started typing. And the next 40 days, I had 240 pages on the computer. I had no idea what I was writing the moment I was writing it. It is only when I was sitting and editing it that it started making sense to me that renewal is the renewal of human consciousness, the renewal through our individual habits. And that's so empowering. I said, man, there is something here. And why I especially found it empowering, Elizabeth, is because for me personally, it answered a question I'd been uh, sort of unable to answer, you could say. I mean, I want to use good language on this podcast. But 15 years, I was literally struggling with, are we operating in this world with the right consciousness? Are we creating more problems than we are solving? And with technology coming up, and with more pharmaceuticals coming up, and with more packaged products coming up, I was part of that problem. I used to run an integrated marketing, communications, and culture building enterprise. And a lot of my clients wanted me to say, "Well, that's the way to go. Open a packet, eat, it's cool, it's convenient." And I said, man, there's something fundamentally wrong here, but I don't know what. But I do know that I can't solve this problem, but I don't have a solution. So 20 years ago, I mean, I'm dating myself here, but that's when I left a very successful company which I was running to the other directors, and I headed out to the Himalayas because some of the spiritual masters that I had already got in touch with by that time, they said that those Tibetans out there, they've been meditating 1,000 years in consciousness and energy and what drives us and purpose and stuff like that. So that's where literally, after all the formal education and the experience of entrepreneurship and the success, the houses, the cars, and all of that, I finally discovered what it takes to live a meaningful and a happy life only after I spent that time in the monasteries, and I continue to, so it's been about 15 years now that I've been driven by what I call inner power, which is the body, mind, spirit alignment. And then suddenly this renewal book happened pre-COVID, and post-COVID, now I'm onto the renewalism movement, which is what is going to give measurability to companies, that if they adopt the renewalism habits, how they can improve personal productivity, team performance, in groups together, how that energy works together, how all of body, mind, and spirit is connected, not only within individuals, but within companies, and companies with their purposes, with the environment, with the triple bottom line. Because I come from that consulting space, right? So I'm uniquely positioned to bring this confluence of commerce and consciousness together. And that's what the movement is exploring currently. So that's me in a nutshell.
Well, a lot of people don't have that journey, that you could actually have the courage to give up a, a lucrative business and go and seek wisdom. And I know India does offer that. My husband and I did some ashram living as well, and it really changes you. It because you learn a lot about your inner self, and you come back so renewed and purpose driven. And so, Judnefera, introduce yourself. Tell us what you do, and thank you for joining the conversation with Sandeep Nath.
Oh, yes, no, absolutely, Sandeep. That was a wonderful story. Thank you so much for sharing it. So mine is a little different. I started off as a diplomat with the United States government. So I traveled overseas. I learned a lot about representing the United States, negotiating various global health UN treaties, and that sort of thing. And then I left that and then decided I wanted to come back to the United States to be closer to my family, right? You only get one life. And so I had some wonderful, amazing experiences, but that renewal that you talked about, being with my family, being with my friends. So I came back, decided to teach kindergarten, by far the absolute hardest job I've ever done in life. I have so much respect for teachers. And then I interviewed people applying for asylum. And then that all brought me to what I do now, which is communications coaching. Every single job that I've had has had an aspect of getting people to communicate better with others, right? If you're not able to communicate your thoughts, your feelings, anything of that nature, things don't work. And so now I offer communication coaching to individuals who are looking to increase their influence, and then to teams, right, who are looking to increase employee engagement, increase employee retention. If you're not able to communicate with each other, then you're not able to increase your bottom line, your profits, communicate with clients, anything of that nature. So I offer communication coaching with a focus on emotional intelligence because I think that that is crucial for everybody to be able to communicate successfully.
Yeah, and that's what we've had
Fantastic.
this wonderful 2 days of speakers. And last night we had Dr. Orman talk about anger elimination. And I think, Sandeep, you were there for the last one. And it was so powerful to think about how people, just get lost with anger and humiliation and self respect and lose their families and lose their jobs and lose their head. So in fact, we'll continue emotional intelligence next month as well, where we'll talk about how it comes in the way of prosperity, comes in the way of your money life, comes in the way of your health. It comes in the way. So, what is your opinion, Sandeep, about emotional intelligence? How do you define it?
Interesting. So I advocate that we must see ourselves in respect to everything in the entire trinity that we are, and that is the body, the mind, and the spirit. Often, I would imagine that we would concern ourselves only with the mind where we talk about emotional intelligence. How you can contain anger, for instance, you mentioned that, or not be fearful, or be fearful with purpose, like you were saying. It wasn't courageous of me to go to the Himalayas. It was absolute fear of where are we headed. So you can either pursue something because you're chasing a dream or you're running away from a fear. But that's not what emotional intelligence is in its totality. It is also to do with the body, and often the body, and changing the state of being, your posture can change your state of mind. So, for example, a very simple hack is smile. You just move these muscles physically, and you'll be surprised. You cannot be angry or fearful or sad or grieving or any other negative emotion which pulls you down if you maintain that smile on your face. So it's a default to hack the mind. But then we also have the spirit, the energy. And frankly, emotions are all about energy to begin with. This is something which is so subtle. I've got this spire pyramid in the emptiness of success, where I talk a lot about these trinities. And the spire pyramid is because a pyramid is okay, easy to understand. You have the Maslow's hierarchy. You've got so many pyramids all over the place. But in a pyramid, there is some logic. Okay, the body, the mind, the spirit. But here it's a spire pyramid. The body is what we understand a lot about, right? We a small cut happens, and you cut your fingernail a little extra, and it starts paining or worse, bleeding. And there goes your day. I can't type anything today. My day is fired. A little hoarseness over here, and oh man, I can't take anybody's calls. We've got all the excuses. The mind is hyperactive, and the body's giving it an excuse. But we don't know why the mind is so hyperactive. We don't know what to do with the mind. I mean, you can't put a band-aid on your anger and get on with your day. No, you can't. At least here you can put a band-aid. You are aware of everything you can do with the body. A lot of things, let's say. You can change your heart, you can change your kidneys. But it's easy to say you can change your mind, but you can't change your mind. You get conditioned into some place, and you're forever stuck with that conditioning. So we really know very little about the mind, and we know the least, that's atop the spire, about energy. And energy, when it moves interpersonally, energies in motion are emotions. I'm not saying this for the first time. I'm sure a lot of our listeners have heard this before, but take it in context. When you're talking about emotional intelligence, you've got to be intelligent about how you're interacting with, maybe inside yourself. Do you love yourself? Or maybe outside yourself, do you exhibit the right response? It could be empathy, it could be all those fancy words that the Google will tell you about emotional intelligence. But the context is, you're changing your state of energy. You're changing yourself oracally. Now, woo woo, aura, what's all that? But that's the interplay. That's what, with a practice like Qigong, which I've been a Qigong master for 15 years, or working with energy like in Reiki or Access bars or various modalities of feeling that energy. And I can get your viewers to feel the energy in 30 seconds if you'd like that. But once you felt it, then you know how to use it, and then you can develop on that emotional intelligence. And then, as we go down this road, we can see how various scientists and philosophers, but I think scientists mostly, academicians, let's say, have put together various experiments in bringing these things together, which I could unpack from the mind and body levels. But that's kind of first thoughts.
They're great thoughts. And actually, yesterday we were all discussing that with Dr. Mort. Scott, who's a psychiatrist, will be on later today. And he asked the question, he says, oh, we are always going to blame our mind, but it's really us. The brain told me to do this, the brain told me to do that, but it's really us. So how do you connect your brain and you? Because it's you, really. Your brain is playing tricks. It's telling you to eat the wrong foods. It's telling you to get angry watching TVs. You hear some bad news and you get all upset. So that's your
Right.
mind, but your mind is really you. So how do you connect the mind and you?
All right. So let me then answer that question with, like I was saying, there are various academicians and authors. As far as I'm concerned, this is all from the published work of some people that I'll introduce the audience to, and I will share my screen for that. This is the work of Dr. David Hawkins, and he's put together a scale of consciousness on which he's got, numbers. Now, the mind understands numbers. So that's why I say that if you want me to go to the mental level, I could do that. Physical level, we've got other scientists for that. But this log is uniquely produced by him, which is a kinesiological measurement, which is, you measure the impact of certain emotions, certain words that trigger certain emotions on your muscles at a very subtle level. So it's a scientific measurement, but very subtle and sensitive, which makes us understand that an emotion like shame, which we could be carrying, which we could be conditioned with, operates at a level of 20. Whereas peace, which most people seek, is at a level of 600. So there is quite a gap from a person who's got a shame or a desire-driven mentality, let's say. Most of us have a desire-driven mentality. We want, can't have more of it. And in order to have the courage, and you used that word earlier, to have the courage to allow these vibes, these emotions, these energies that pull us down uh, to pride and below, in order to have the courage to move above that, which is the kind of level of 200, is a great place to take the mind. And that comes through meditation, that comes through being mindful, being in the moment, being aware. Where is my mind taking me? If it's taking me down, is that where I want to be? No, then why am I going there? And can I go to some neutrality? It's pretty much like shifting the gear of a manual shift car. You get into neutral, and then you move into the second gear of willingness and acceptance and reasoning. And then the moment you hit love, things change all around you. And this is supported by the chakra theory and all of that. The moment you hit love, you are one inside and out, and you're in a better position to give out. So you can't love anybody unless you love yourself. And once you love yourself, you start loving others. And when you're outward facing, everything changes in your inner and outer worlds, and you experience joy, you experience peace. So the reason why the mind holds us back is because we are stuck with the wrong emotions, and the wrong these are the emotions corresponding on the third column, and the wrong worldviews, the life views that we have. We're usually frightened or disappointed or demanding or something like that. We're rarely benign or feeling everything's perfect, but you start putting that smile in your face and things start getting perfect. And then your worldview changes, your life view changes, your emotion rises, and the energies you exchange are different.
Ah, so love conquers all, huh? We were talking, and
Love.
we had a corporate matchmaker yesterday on the show, and she was
True.
talking about soulmates, and how emotional intelligence is so important, because if someone is emotionally not stable, they cannot have a relationship. It's just not going
Mm.
to happen. They're always going to be angry, they're always going to be upset, or over loving, over enduring. And so having control of your emotions, or being in charge of your body, mind, and spirit, as you put it, through meditation, makes you a better partner, makes you a better worker, makes you better in many, many ways. So, Judnefera, what do you think about emotional intelligence? How do you define that?
I think emotional intelligence is incredibly important, but I have it into two different buckets and two different categories, the self and then others. So I think a lot of people will find traditional definitions. They'll talk about self-awareness, self-control, but I think that's the bucket for yourself, right? Exactly what you were saying, Elizabeth. Are you in control of your emotions? Are you able to recognize what they are? Is usually where I start off with people, right? Like, do you know how you're feeling? Are you feeling angry? Are you feeling sad? Are you feeling neutral? You have to be able to self-diagnose first before you can then figure out what the appropriate action, reaction, response is. And then the second bucket is others. So your social awareness. Can you read the room, right? Sometimes people walk into a room and they can take the pulse and they can see, okay, maybe there's some friction over there. Those people are really happy. They've always got a smile on their face, right? Or are they not? Do I need to just avoid that, not bring up certain topics? So your ability to read the room, and then relationship management. Can you manage the room if you can read it, right? Like, are you aware enough of yourself to, then figure out how you show up to control your own emotions? And then are you aware enough of others and what they're feeling and how they, even if you don't know why, right? You can tell something's off or they're great. I should approach them. So I bucket it into two different things in terms of emotional intelligence: yourself and then others, your awareness of yourself, your ability to manage yourself and your emotions, and then your awareness of others and your ability to then calibrate and interact with them based on their emotions.
Mm.
What do you think, Sandeep?
Well, when Judnefera was saying that, I was remembering the story of the coffee cup.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes like this for those of us who don't know or don't recall that I have a cup of coffee in my hand, and somebody comes and hits me shoulder to shoulder, and it spills and the coffee falls, right? Now, the question is, why did the coffee fall? And there can be multiple answers. I've read the story in various forums. A professor asked the question to his classroom, and 20 different answers came about because of gravity, because of this, because of that, because of the hit, because of the angle of the hit, because it was in his right hand, whatever. But the true answer, and the simplest answer, let's say, is because there was coffee in the cup. If there wasn't coffee in the cup, it wouldn't have spilt. If there was tea in the cup, tea would have spilt. If there was love in the cup, love would have spilt. If there was any emotion inside this cup, that's what's going to come out when somebody shakes you. What comes out when somebody shakes you? When somebody hits you shoulder to shoulder, can you give them a hug? Do you have enough hugs inside you? They ram your car, they break your window. What do you do? Whatever's inside your house, whatever's inside your car will come out. So I don't differentiate us and them. To your point, Judnefera, it's just we're all energetically connected and we're all the same. But the cognizance of our similarity is where our energetic connection and that connection with spirit, which I aim to widen, because 2,500 years ago or thereabouts, when the Buddha walked the earth, I would believe that these were cylinders. These were not a spire pyramid. It was not even a pyramid. It was like equal. The connections that Buddha had with his followers, for them to assimilate, memorize, and transmit his teachings for a good 400 years or thereabouts before they finally anybody had to write them down. That's called oral transmission, is testimony to the fact that it's not somebody's memory that's sort of the brain capacity. I mean, if you had scientists in those days, they would have all these great Mahasiddhas, these philosophers and meditators who originally packed together 84,000 sutras of the Buddha. They would have been lab rats. But the way that connection and that knowledge has been transmitted and applied, it's happened because of a spirit connection, because we're all energetically connected. Our emotions are all in sync, in resonance. And therefore our minds are in resonance, and therefore our bodies are our bodies. I mean, the bodies are always resonant. You can, body's so gross, it just takes a dance to be in resonance. So it doesn't take much. You're muted.
Coming to that pyramid that you've talked about, can you show us that slide again? I know you showed it to us before, but every time I see it, it gives me a new insight. Yeah.
Now, I'm not sure whether you're talking about the pyramid slide.
Yeah, that you showed us when you last spoke.
Okay, so well, what I showed you the last time was not my work, but I'll be very happy to show you the pyramid. Let me just access that one.
Oh, show us your work. It doesn't matter. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's
So,
talk about emotional intelligence. So let's talk about when does things get out of control? What are the triggers that you would see? Because there are good sides to anger, and there's bad sides too. Because sometimes if you're the boss of a company and you want to get respected, you have to throw up. If somebody didn't perform well. So what do you think is a trigger that when your emotions are off balance? So I'll ask Judnefera first, and then I'll come back to you, Sandeep.
So I think for a lot of people, a trigger is anything that they perceive as criticism, right? Anything that they perceive as maybe you haven't done something well, maybe especially if you're in a work environment, right? If your boss comes to tell you, to give you feedback you weren't expecting, or to give you feedback that you don't necessarily know if it's valid. So I think a trigger for a lot of people is anything that might be surprising to them that they perceive as negative. And then they have to then work through, is it actually negative? What is the story I'm telling myself about this? And then once they've gotten that under control, then they can respond in a way that maybe isn't angry or is maybe curious, right? So triggers can be a variety of different things for a variety of different people. But I think one thing that you could point to as a trigger for a lot of individuals, maybe not everybody, is something that's unexpected that they perceive as a critique or criticism that they might then feel they have to defend themselves against. Sandeep, I don't know what your thoughts are.
Yeah. So let me take this opportunity to first show you the pyramid, which is from my book, which I just opened because you so kindly asked for that, Elizabeth. And this is what I'm saying. We are so concerned with the body, but less with the mind and least with the energy or spirit. But 2,500 years ago, it was all the same. And renewal is actually about raising human consciousness, connecting us at a spirit level beyond labels, beyond those religions, beyond saying I am this, I am that, because all of us at the end of the day, scientifically, are just atoms floating around in space with so much of space between us that if you were to pack any human being without all the space, they would pack into, I would, if I remember right, I would imagine something like a 5 centimeter cube or something like that. That would need to be validated, but I remember some very small number like that. So that's all the mass we really have. The rest of us is beyond that 5 centimeters is all space. So it's this space that we're dealing with each other through, and that's what connects all of us. And the renewal of human consciousness is about bringing this kind of a structure back. That said, to your point here, Elizabeth, let me share the other thing which we briefly went through on triggers, which I would attribute to a gentleman called Plutchik. Now, this is called the Plutchik wheel, and I find it very beautiful to get an understanding of what makes us react in certain ways. And what Plutchik's put together in this wheel are major emotions. I mean, there can be so many labels that we could use. But by and large, we could be angry or we could be fearful, which could move from terror to fear to apprehension. Or we could be loving or, serenity, joy, ecstasy, those kind of feelings. Or we could be sad, which goes from pensiveness to sadness to absolute grief. Now, what's interesting about this is the words that are written in white in between these petals. And why it's interesting is because we can navigate our responses physically and mentally based on our understanding of where we lie with these words. Now, for example, Judnefera, since you were taking some specific cases which I quite liked, are there any words that, if you think of your own reactions or somebody that you had in mind, any words in the white that would be the kind of bent of mind, like contemptuous or remorseful or disapproving or feeling in awe, anything of that sort about anybody that comes to mind?
So, do I have feelings about anybody that align with the words in the white?
Yeah, or anybody or any situation. Like, for instance, I'll give you an example. I'm contemptuous of people who are not anymore, but when I was studying this wheel, I analyzed that contemptuous of people who do lowly jobs, you know.
Oh, okay.
It's my conditioning, all right? Not
Oh, yes.
anymore,
I
but
think, yeah.
not proud of it, but whatever. Okay,
Yep.
so he's picking up stuff on the street or he's cleaning the street. I don't think much. This is underlying contempt, let's say. All right. So is
Mm.
there anything like that that could come up in your case?
For me, so awe actually, I am in awe of people who are able to maintain their composure in the
Uh,
face of people who, approach them in a way that might be contemptuous or in a way that might exhibit disapproval, right? So their ability to control their emotions and to maybe pause and stop and think, like that's awe-inspiring for me because that's maybe not something that I'm capable of doing all the time now, but that I aspire to do.
right. Wonderful example. Thank you so much. That's spot on. And let's take this one as a case study because you used two beautiful words, awe and disapproval, which happen to be on two sides of this petal. And because you are sort of disapproving of yourself in a sense, so that I can't do it that way, that person who's doing it amazes you. At least they surprise you. Wow, that was well done. Now, if you can list out, and I say this to the viewers, do this, list out what all you disapprove. Like I listed out whatever I was contemptuous about, and do it honestly. And instead of disapproving yourself or the other person or whatever, if you move into a space of submitting to it, all right, this is how it is, then instead of being surprised by it, you might be fearful of it because it is awesome. It's big. It's like Wonder Woman, and Wonder Woman is, I sort of submit to her, so I actually fear her. But if I submit to her and I don't get an awe of her, but I actually love her, what happens is I start trusting her and, in fact, become an admirer. And if I hang on to that love and I get optimistic, one day I will be a Wonder Woman, it gives me joy. I could be ecstatic about the potential and the possibilities. So you see, we've just moved 4 petals just by flipping what we think of our own self in response to any situation for that matter. I, for instance, if I was a little aggressive and this guy who was cleaning the street would have dirtied my car, I would have probably been annoyed or even lashed out in rage. I don't do that anymore because of this wheel. Thank you.
We were talking about the shootings in Utah and, getting people that trigger into such an emotional state that they take some really shocking behavior. And one of the things that Dr. Mort was saying that he wants to recommend that schools start teaching children about emotional intelligence, that we take it into the curriculum, because we really now need to make emotional intelligence, like you, Sandeep, and I were talking about corporate clients who want to be trained, and like for CEOs, we're starting a new CEO circle that we're creating. Right now, we're doing research. We're going to be talking to 100 CEOs about what is important to them, and emotional intelligence. It has to be a top level decision so that it is horizontal as well as vertical, that companies adopt it, that we have sustainability, we have diversity, but we really need to take emotional intelligence more seriously, given the economic downturn, the negative news, the reactions people are having, because we have to preserve our society. And in order to preserve our society, we've got to get control of our emotions. What do you think about introducing emotional intelligence in schools as well as in corporate as part of a bigger picture?
I think that's a question for Judnefera. She's in that space and she's coming from the US government, so let's do something about it.
Yeah.
So I think, first of all, I think it's great. I taught kindergarten for a year, and so I think introducing emotional intelligence in schools is absolutely crucial. My babies were 4 and 5 years old, and so socio-emotional intelligence for the children, even if that's not what it was called, is vital, right? You take the toy away from them because it's time for read aloud and they don't get to play anymore. Teaching them that they can have a reaction, that's okay, but then how they demonstrate that reaction or how that reaction affects other people is crucial. And they're 4 and 5 years old. So I think starting it early and just having an awareness of it is vital. And then I also think in workplaces, right? I've had people describe adults as having adult tantrums because they don't know what to do with their emotions. So if you've got a CEO or a CFO or anybody in the C-suite who maybe got some really bad news, then they're going to have some feelings about it. But they also then need to learn how to handle those feelings appropriately. There's a time and a place for anger. There's a time and a place for frustration. You can have your feelings, but then how those feelings manifest and then are transferred to other people, those are the things that we need to provide trainings for so that people can understand and have ways to handle their emotions that are appropriate in a professional setting. The same way that we don't expect the kindergarteners to know exactly how to handle their big emotions, if nobody's ever taught you, then you might not know as an adult how to handle your big emotions either. And so I think training both in schools, in corporations, in government, in organizations everywhere would be beneficial for not just the CEO, but for their employees, their clients, their shareholders, their board members. It's beneficial to everybody.
I think now we've got to take it more seriously. I taught the third grade too, and I was shocked to see how angry these kids were. My God, little children so angry. It was just like really. So yeah, I totally agree. And one of the things that we started our channel was because we felt we were enough of all this negativity and getting angry over what things that are beyond your control. So yeah. So Sandeep, you had a question.
No, I had a point to make there, and that is, in fact, think of it now, I have 2 points. One is that when we see these kids getting angry, the one thing that we must understand is that it's a pointer to what's happening in their houses.
Yes.
Kids will not do what you tell them to do, they will do what they see. So we are having a society today which is angry. When the adults are angry, the kids think that's what they need to emulate to get adopted, and it's their survival instinct kicking in. Because by itself, that kid is coming from a very pure space, relatively. It's this conditioning that we give them. And the second thing was related to this. I was reminded of uh, a curriculum which this would be a plug actually for the Dalai Lama, which is called Sea Learning, which is SEE. So, Judnefera, you mentioned social and emotional. The third E is ethical. Social, emotional, and ethical learning is a program that the Dalai Lama, in all his wisdom, has put together and tested for 20 years with the Emory University in the US. And it's part of Emory University's methodology proven to take across to all across K-12. So they've got, in fact, pre-nursery, nursery, as well as classes 1 to 12, all the way. And I think it's worth exploring. If any of our listeners, viewers are in this space, they must look up Sea Learning and Emory University, because you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And it's been done from a level of awareness that has a lot of wisdom of energy and spirit working, and rebirths in that context. Now, I know a lot of the Western world wouldn't buy into that, but the way we know it, and there are documentaries on YouTube to support this, the Tibetans have been practicing on their rebirths and coming into their accumulated wisdom states, lives after lives. The Dalai Lama is called the 14th because he's the same wisdom stream coming for the 14th life now. He's the 14th Dalai Lama. It's not how it was, King Edward the Fourth or Charles the Fifth or whatever. This is the same mind stream which decides, okay, I'm going to reappear like that. The coterie of lamas around him get that information, and then they find the kid when the kid is about 4 or 5 years old, and then you have your documentaries on YouTube on this stuff on Tibetan reincarnation. So my point is, we know how kids are coming up through the reincarnation process and what kind of a mind stream they're bringing in. If they're bringing in mind stream what is called karmically from a previous life, then yeah, they will probably be angry. They have an angry mind. But not all of them are. A lot of them, especially in the ages of 5, 6, 7, when they're developing their mind, so to say, are just emulating what's going on in the house. So Sea Learning takes this into account as well, and ethics into account. Ethics is a very big deal. In fact, the lack of ethics or the conflict of ethics causes a lot of emotional conflict as well.
That's very
So,
true. Because you hear so many stories about people, are being when they're growing up, they're always put down and people speak negatively to them. And so they're always on the defensive. Like when I was growing up, I was like the favorite child. My mother loved me and my dad loved me, and there was nothing I could ever do wrong in their eyes, even though I was not perfect. And I was great in school and I'd win a lot of medals and I was the athlete and ballet and, an all-rounder. And so I grew up in an environment where everybody complimented everybody. Now in America or the Western world, they would say that's ridiculous, But when I did come to America, I fell flat on my face because people criticized me, and I was not used to being criticized. And I was vice president of a corporate, and I had 50 people reporting to me, and so it's a shock, when you've grown up in a world of beautiful things and everything you do is beautiful and then you come here and then you're slapped into shape. um, but it is important to have a balance. It is important to have both sides. You can't live in a fairy tale world and wait for Prince Charming, and then Prince Charming is not Prince Charming. So you really have to live in reality of what we are going through. And so I think emotional intelligence will help as more and more people start becoming aware that we really have problems and we have to fix them now. And as AI comes in, and they said AI is going to be very negative and it's going to, challenge you and all that, provoke you. So we have to be prepared on how we can handle all this pressure. So I'm going to conclude this beautiful conversation. If you all want to have some last minute comments or tips and advice, and please share your website. And if people want to book you as a coach, tell them how to do that and what your packages are. So I'll start with Sandeep and then I'll go to Judnefera.
Well, thank you. If you're already considering a one-on-one with me, I'm flattered. And the simplest way to do that is go to sandeepnath.com. You could also scan this QR code and I'll have your contact details and some feedback from you about what you thought about today's talk. The other ways of contacting me are I'm fastest on WhatsApp. And so if you go to sandeepnath.com, you'll see that green button of WhatsApp right on top. Click that, send me a message or send me a mail, or uh, you figure. Thank you.
Sandeep has a really good YouTube channel as well, so I would definitely follow him on social media. He's definitely an influencer, and some of the work he's doing is incredible. I have really enjoyed watching some of his videos, so I would highly encourage that as well. So, Judnefera, tell us about you and how people can connect with you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, as you can see at the top, I've got at jrasayon.coaching. So I have a YouTube channel and an Instagram, and those are the handles for it, jrasayon.coaching. So you can find me there. You can also find me on LinkedIn, which is where I'm quite active right now. And that's just my name. So Judnefera Rasayon. On LinkedIn. And I offer one-on-one coaching. I offer coaching for teams as well. So if you're interested in that, reach out. We can absolutely figure out what works best for your team, for what you are looking to do. And then I'm also having a free webinar on October 8th, Wednesday, at noon on Zoom. If you're not able to make it live, that's perfectly fine. It will be recorded if you register, and it's on 7 tips for emotionally intelligent leadership. So I'll go through emotional intelligence and I'll give you 7 concrete tips for what you can do to incorporate emotional intelligence in your leadership. If you are interested in that, just reach out to me, Instagram, LinkedIn, and I will happily send you the link to register.
So thank you for being my guest on my show. So the Discover Brightside video network is all about discovery, and we love to discover new people. So Sandeep and Judnefera, you've been discovered on our channel, and we hope that our audience will write us a comment, tell us what you think about Sandeep and Judnefera, and your thoughts on emotional intelligence and leadership. I also wanted to make an announcement that today we will be having speakers all through the day talking about emotional intelligence. And next month,
we will be doing prosperity. What's in your way, really? What's stopping you from living the life that you want to live? So answer that question, tell us what you think, and join us in October. Meanwhile, you can watch all our videos anytime, anywhere on our website, www.discoverbrightside.com. And thank you so much for watching this show, and we hope that you'll write us a comment.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth, for hosting.